A friend asked me a fascinating question, and it really got me thinking all week. Here's the background. Let's call my friend Sarah. Now, Sarah has a friend, let's call him Jacob. And about 5 years ago, Jacob had cancer, and he went for treatment, and thank God he recovered and is healthy. As a thank you, and as to express his feelings of gratitude for the hospital staff that cared for him while he was undergoing treatment, what he does is once a year he goes back and he gives treats and gifts to the hospital staff to say thank you. Now he asked Sarah, he said, would you bake something and come with me and give it out to the hospital staff? So Sarah said, sure, no problem. And she baked some cupcakes and she went together with Jacob and they gave it out to the hospital staff. And then they went home and Jacob turned to her and said, wow, that was amazing. Like, you did something really special there. And she said, I felt like, yeah, okay, I didn't feel, and Jacob turned to her and said, don't you feel like you've done something really special? And she said to me, she says, I actually didn't feel that. I didn't feel like I had done this amazing, special thing. And she contrasted it and she said, sometimes when I pray for other people, right, if God forbid there's someone who's sick and I'm saying some Tehillim, some Psalms for him, like then I feel like I'm doing something, right? I feel inside of me that's a special thing that I'm doing. Here I didn't feel like it was an amazing thing, even though he kept telling me, wow, it was an amazing thing. And other people said, oh, wow, that's so nice that you did that. I personally didn't feel like it was anything special. So we had a very interesting conversation. We spoke a little bit about the power of prayer, and she, how, God forbid, if we hear that someone is sick, we feel very helpless, right? We want to fix it. We want to make things better, but oftentimes there isn't really much we can do. But prayer is something that we can actually do that makes a difference. And she shared her story with me of how when she had a family member that was sick and needed surgery, and the doctors said to her, I'm really sorry, there's no beds available. If the bed doesn't become available in the next half hour, we're going to have to send you home. And you'll have to come back and we'll see tomorrow if we could try again. And this was after a harrowing day of, waiting and being nervous, and her parents were not doing well with this situation. And she took out Tehillim, and she really cried her heart out to God and asked him to help them out. And she said, at that point, the doctors came in and said a bed just became available and they were able to do the surgery. And it was such a powerful story for her, how she saw that, her prayers had an actual result in this world. So there's definitely, an aspect of that when a person experiences something on that level, then they know that their prayers are actually making a difference, and that we know that there's no such thing as a prayer that goes to waste. But she was still left with the question of why don't I feel like I'm doing something special when I bake these cakes and go and give them to the people in the hospital? And she said something very interesting to me, and she said, maybe it's because I don't value what I'm doing when I give the cakes to the hospital. Maybe I just don't think it's that special a thing, giving some cakes to someone. Like, what's the big deal? And it got me thinking and wondering, like, what is, when we do something, should we value what we do? Like, are we supposed to think to ourselves, wow, that was a good thing? Or should we just say, no, it was just something that I did, and kind of brush it off? And the truth is, I think this question comes up for us a lot, all the time, right? A lot of times, we do something and we kind of, feel like, it was fine. You do a favor for someone else and they say thank you. And oftentimes our natural response is, nah, it was nothing, don't worry. And we feel like, no big deal. Anyone would do that. Is that the way we should be feeling in our life? So let me share with you a story from Jewish history that I think will shed some light on this question. Before King David became the king of Israel, he was just David, a simple shepherd. And he lived in a time in Jewish history where the Philistines were very, very antagonistic towards the Jews. And they oppressed the Jews, and it was not a pleasant time for the Jewish people. Now, the Philistines had a giant called Goliath. And what he would do is every single day, he would come to the Jewish people, where the Jewish people lived, and he would taunt them and say, "Ha, I'm so strong. Do you have a warrior amongst you that will come and fight me? Because if you have someone, send someone out. If you have a man, send him out to fight me. And if he wins, then we, the Philistines, will become your slaves. But if I win, then you, the Jews, will become my slaves." Now, Goliath was a giant, and he was a skilled military warrior. No one was going to take him on. Everyone was scared of him. But at the same time, this was a tremendous embarrassment for the Jewish people. And one day, David came to his brothers to bring them some food, and he's there when Goliath comes out, taunting the Jews and saying, you have no men amongst you that can come out and fight me. If you do, send him out." And he hears that and he thinks, that's terrible. I'm going to go and fight him. So he goes to the king at the time, who's King Saul, and he says, "I'm prepared to go and fight Goliath." And King Saul kind of laughs at him, says, "You're just a small young guy. Like, what on earth do you think you're signing yourself up for? You're young. You're small." King David was not a built, he didn't have a military physique like to go fight against Goliath. You have no military training. Like, what are you thinking? And David tells Saul an interesting story. He says this, "I'm a shepherd, and one day there was a bear that came and attacked the sheep, and I single-handedly was able to fight the bear off, and I was able to kill a lion with my bare hands as well. And with God's help, I will be able to defeat. God will help me, and I will be able to defeat Goliath." And Saul says, "Okay, if you want to try." At that point, they had nothing to lose. No one else was offering to go and fight Goliath. So David goes, and he is able to, with God's help, defeat Goliath. But the question that is asked, is, what is David saying to Saul about these stories about lions and bears? I mean, they're a bit like he's going against Goliath, who is a skilled warrior, right? A giant. Just because he was able to defeat a lion or a bear doesn't mean that he's going to be able to defeat someone who is a skilled warrior and a giant that terrorizes the entire nation. Like, I mean, it's a nice story, but one could say that it's almost not even relevant. And also, what is he saying at the end of the thing? What's the real thing that he's saying? Is he saying that, I'm gonna go because I trust that God's gonna help me, right? Like, when he heard Goliath making fun of the Jewish people in the way that he did, he felt like it was a slight on God's honor. He says, if I'm going to go and fight for God's sake, for sure God's going to help me. So why wasn't that the whole message of his story? Why does he have to bring in the story of the lion and the bear? And King David is teaching us a powerful lesson. King David used the experiences in his past where he was able to conquer something that was more powerful for himself. Because we have to appreciate what our experiences are. And he's using those experiences to give him the confidence to say that, you know what, in the past I was able to conquer something that was more powerful than myself. In the past, God gave me the strength. So in the future, please God, God will also give me the strength. And the lesson that David is teaching us is that we have to value our skills and our actions, because when we value them, that spurs us to do more, right? If we keep thinking, it's nothing, it often doesn't inspire us to do more, right? But when we look at the what we've done, the actions that we've done, and we value the actions that we do, then that we should use that as an impetus and as motivation to do more, right? If you look back and you say, you know, yesterday I was calm and patient in the face of someone who antagonized me, then that can inspire us to try and be even more calm and patient today, right? Whereas as if we look at yesterday and when we were calm and patient when someone antagonized and said, it was nothing, it doesn't necessarily give us the confidence to try more, to try harder the next day. And incidentally, for anyone who is in education or has children, this is our job as parents and educators is to help our students and our children discover what their strengths are, right? Because when we know what our strengths are, it inspires us to use those strengths and to do better. So to answer the question, I'm not sure exactly why sometimes we feel that, wow, that was an amazing thing, and sometimes we don't feel like that was an amazing thing. But when we do something good, we are supposed to value that we've done something good, right? We are supposed to look at that thing that we've done good and say, you know, yes, I did something good, and use that as a motivation to continue to do good and to do other good things. A question that often comes up at this point is, but how do we not fall into the trap of becoming arrogant? I'm going to share just one small story that I think sheds light on it. It's obviously a big question, and you can spend a lot of time discussing it. But there's a story in the Talmud, and a very interesting story that's told. And the Talmud said that when Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi, who wrote the Talmud, who codified the Mishnah, died, humility died with him. Comes along a rabbi called Rabbi Yossi and says, "What do you mean? There's still me." Now that sounds ridiculous, right? Like, you know, here's basically Rabbi Yossi saying, like, no, humility hasn't died. I'm here and I'm humble. What does it actually mean? What is he saying? So I heard a understanding on it, which I think is very, which sheds some light on it. Rabbi Yossi was an accomplished Torah scholar. He was a rabbi. He had many students. He'd made it, for all intents and purposes, he'd made it in a big way. Later on in life, he became blind. And when he became blind, he lost all his Torah knowledge. He lost all his students. He lost everything. So what Rabbi Yossi saying here is he's not saying there's still humility because I'm humble, but he's saying there's still humility. Why? Because if somebody wants to learn about humility, let them learn my story. You can have it all, and that doesn't mean much, because God can take it away at any moment, and it's a very sobering thought. And even without going into the sobering thought, but the message that Rabbi Yossi is telling us there is that, yes, value what you do, value it, but remember that everything comes from God, right? And that is what keeps us humble, right? The understanding and the knowledge that if we have the capabilities and we have the energy and we have the time and we have the talents, all those are a gift from God, and we should value them. We absolutely have to value them, because if God gave them to us, God wants us to use them. And our first step to using them is valuing them. But remember that everything comes from God, and with that, a person retains their perspective and retains the knowledge that I value everything I have, and I do, and I have a responsibility with to use everything that I have to do more good and to fulfill God's to fulfill God's wishes in this world. If you have any questions you'd like me to cover in future episodes, please get in touch, send me a message, and if you'd like to send some feedback, I always appreciate hearing from you. Wishing you a good Shabbos.